My name's Bruce Bauslaugh. I'm from Vero Beach, Florida, and I've been a follower of Jesus since I was 7 years old. When it comes to my faith, I've always been more of a thinker than a feeler. And back in the early 2000s, I had an opportunity to travel with some other people from my church to the Dominican Republic on a missions trip. And what was interesting about this trip, it was all about prayer. The main mission of the trip was to pray with as many people as we found, pray with church leaders in the Dominican, and pray at community centers, at some schools. So I went on this trip a little hesitant about it, but then when we got there and we began to pray with people, it got really, really interesting. As I said, I tend to think about my faith more than I feel it. And as we traveled in some of the slums in some of these villages right along the Haitian border, there seemed to be a real spiritual heaviness there. It's really hard to explain, but you could almost feel it in your body that something strange was going on there. I remember going into this one woman's hut with some friends, and she had all these weird statues and paintings on the wall, and it actually felt cold in there. We all felt it, and it was probably 90 degrees outside. This lady didn't have air conditioning. This was in a slum area. But it was sort of this thick feeling of oppression that was going on there. So it was kind of intimidating, but we got a chance to pray with this woman, and she appreciated it. In one village, they actually had, believe it or not, a witch doctor who lived in the village, and we were able to, he wasn't home at the time, but we actually went and prayed in his front yard and prayed against any evil oppression going on in that community. And as we continued throughout this trip, I got to feel my faith a little bit more than I ever had before. I was feeling sensations in my body and in my heart that I had never felt before. And I think, and I believe, it really had to do with this unseen spiritual battle that was going on in this community. And we all experienced it. I wasn't the only one who was sort of feeling this for the first time. So we spent all of our time there praying through the community. And what was really cool to find out later, probably a month after we had spent a week in the country praying for folks, that another team from a different church in our community came through those same areas. And their mission was to share the gospel, to hold some vacation Bible schools and some meetings where they would introduce Christ to people for the first time. And they came back to us after their trip and said, you know what, we really believe that you guys sort of laid the groundwork for us as we prepared to come into these communities, laying the groundwork of prayer, fighting some of these unseen battles that go on that prevent people's hearts from turning to Christ. And so that was very satisfying. It was one of those trips where you didn't come away with a lot of notoriety or a lot of good stories to tell, but it's just something I'll always remember as having such a deep, different impact on my faith than anything I had ever experienced before.